Everybody.
Normally, Steve and I hold our arms like this so our biceps pop out more, which is why we wear these tight shirts. Steve's like, "You're a large? Actually, I'm getting you a medium."
Okay,
But,
is that our intro?
I don't know. I'm
Good
just
enough.
kinda
Hey,
goofing
welcome to the
around.
podcast, everybody.
Basically, yeah.
Chris, do the honors of introducing
Yes,
our
we
guest.
have a dear friend of mine and a graduate of
Yes.
Ignite, Dr. Jonathan Prescott Kelley, and welcome.
Thank you.
For those in the studio audience,
Good to be
we'll
here.
pipe down. Pipe down over there. Exactly. What was the biggest studio audience we had? I was thinking
2 people, 3 people.
No, it was-
Oh, and Nev and
Keith,
her.
yeah, no,
Keith brought his
I
kids.
think it was
'cause-
4. 4 people
my
was the
God.
record. Today, not so many.
Records are made to be broken, so
Yes.
it won't be long.
Exactly.
bring more
Grab some
friends.
people off the street.
If we make it fun enough, I mean, I think it's fun enough.
Keith said he was gonna bring all his friends, and he just brought his wife and kids.
Hey, maybe enough said.
All right, so
great.
I like my opener question, which is just kind of like I want to call it like free for all, or no, like a freestyle. That's the word I'm looking for, which is
Yeah.
Dr. John Kelley. What should we know about you?
I'm a physical therapist, so that's what the doctorate degree is in.
We don't really actually call you Dr. John Kelley.
No.
No, it's,
Usually JK.
although you've been calling
or
me
John.
John Moore since Emily has been, I think, coming to Ignite
Okay.
a little bit more often. So because that's
I'm
what she
trying to
calls me,
transition
so.
to that.
Yeah?
Like, I grew up calling you JK
It's
because
tough, old
that's
habits.
what you were 7 years ago. Probably would, maybe even longer than that since we met.
Yeah,
Playing Frisbee.
yeah. I think it was ultimate
and with
Frisbee.
mutual friends. And so I always called you JK, and then Emily's been calling you John. And I'm like, I think I'm going to, it just seems more fitting.
Oh, awesome.
John. So I've been trying to do John more. But
Yeah, but a streak, Fred.
I know
Yo.
it's JK. See, I know it was JK way back when he becomes famous for probably not physical therapy, but whatever else you end up.
Exactly. The plan is to be rich and famous and then have a really short autograph, basically. 2
Oh,
letters,
that's nice.
simplest way to do it. They don't have to be legible. Ask James Ritchie. So
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you've seen his signature, but
Okay, his autograph. as you
autograph.
wanna call it.
his autograph.
I have a different. My autograph is different than my signature.
Is your signature, is an autograph just the signature that people want?
Okay, sure.
Is that like what the differentiation is?
I don't have an autograph yet, if that's
Or is
the
there
case.
actually like, I bet there's like autograph experts who are like, you stupid. It's actually this is the, I don't know.
Well, I use my signature if it's like a document, like when I buy my 4th house.
Sure.
Something like that. I don't know if you know if I have. Okay, so that's a different signature than me just goofing off and signing something.
Sure.
You know, because I get approached all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
People are like, is that the Steve? Is that
We
cool
actually
Steve?
we
that
did
cool?
do that with youth group where some kids won we did a bags tournament and they won, and I said the winning I made up a prize or whatever. I was like, you get a picture with Steve and he gets to sign it. So we
Autograph picture of
autograph
Steve, that's-
picture with Steve. It was just like we just turned Steve into some celebrity.
It's great. Okay, so what should we know about you? You're a doctor, physical therapy.
Yeah. So
And what else?
I work at a small clinic in Gurnee and been there for a few years now. And I'm from this area originally and just did the Ignite program pretty recently. So, yeah, lots of questions that need to be discussed that aren't being asked enough. So
I would agree with that.
So-
there's more that I can say.
Yeah,
there,
well,
but-
I just want to since
Yeah.
we're on the topic, you went through how many years of schooling?
So I did 4 years for my undergrad and then 3 years for my DPT.
Okay, so 7 years of college schooling.
Yeah.
And you then worked for a few years after that and then found this program.
Yep.
And you still found value in this program,
Absolutely.
even though you found a job or something that you like doing, enjoy doing, spend a lot of time learning about. You were alluding to it. There were questions that you'd never really answered before. Is that right?
Yeah, or at least hadn't been asked intentionally in a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point. You don't need to stop asking those questions first of all. So I'm going to lay out the questions that I think that your program asks. If now's a good time for that.
Sure, yeah.
So
Free for all. Go for it.
I think that there's 3 main program questions essentially that are asked. The first one is, who are you? The second one is, what do you want? And the third one is, how are you going to get it? And I think that those 3 questions should always be asked, no matter what job you're working, no matter what
Yeah.
you're doing, what projects you're on. any
Yeah.
stage of life, I think that that's super relevant. So, and
Yeah.
Steve did not ask me to say any of that, by the way. That's
Well, I appreciate it.
genuine. It's
I asked
something
him.
I've been reflecting on. Chris did ask. It was part of an exchange, actually. You're supposed to bring your blazer for me to wear. I wanted to,
Shoot.
Oh, dang
I
it.
forgot it.
Yeah,
Steve,
well,
when your people-
episode number 2. There's
when
so
your-
going to be an episode number 2.
when your people reached out to my people and they said that I was going to get a blazer, I thought it would be Chris's. And not only is it not Chris's, but there isn't a blazer. So next time I'm on, that's
Right.
what I'm asking for.
It was
So,
glasses too, remember?
I wore, yeah, I took
Reggie's
my
glasses.
Reggie. Yeah, had fake blue light glasses or whatever, and so I put those on too. And I thought, I don't know, I was feeling myself.
You
that
got
day. What are you gonna
roadblocks?
say?
I
You
forget.
got
I forget what the
roadblock?
topic it was.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
roadblocks.
Go back through all the
Uh-huh.
episodes. It's one of the openers.
It's one of them.
That's
Yeah. Okay, so through the Ignite program, we talk about like strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
So, and I don't expect anyone to kind of like memorize what their strengths are because it's kind of like you're very doctory with your talking. So is it inert? Like you should just know these things. So am I saying the right word? Okay, I'm an idiot in front of him.
The school system failed.
It failed me.
Sure.
It failed me.
But
Okay.
where it didn't fail,
Right.
job.
Right. Okay. So what I'm trying to say,
maybe.
like, what are your strengths in the confines of like with the Ignite program, like how we discover them and all that kind of. What would you say you're really good at?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always tricky to identify your own strengths because you're drawn to the things that you want to be strong in, and then that can make it a little bit difficult. That said, like I try to balance it based on, something that somebody said at one point or another, and just external feedback is a good way to compliments or like that you've received over the years. Like you take that and you start to kind of get a self-assessment of things that you might be good at, things that you might not be good at too when it comes to identifying weaknesses. Yeah. So analytical is probably the top one. If that answer doesn't help you to kind of determine that a little bit, that was a pretty big one for me.
Okay, so analytical, define that in your words. What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And why is that a strength?
Analysis, well, it's a strength because you're interested in understanding either a system or a person or a concept or anything along those lines. And either my brain is working like really hard on trying to figure out what is going on or it's not working at all. I don't have a whole lot of in between. So if I'm focused on something, I'm really taking it apart. I'm trying to figure out what's the purpose of it. How is it working? How could it be improved? So in that sense, that's useful for what I do because I'm a physical therapist. There's a lot of people that come in with aches and pains. And one of the main tests you'll be asked in a physical therapy setting is, hey, can you just walk for me? Can you walk up and down the hallway? Maybe turn around, that kind of thing, just to kind of get a sense of how a person moves.
Yeah.
And that's, oftentimes the first level of analysis. You've already maybe asked some questions at that point. You kind of have a sense of what's bringing them in, but you're looking at how they're moving. Do they favor one leg over another? Is there a different amount of time that one leg is swinging? Are they toed out, toed in? Those types of things. What direction do they choose to turn? Do they always choose to turn that way? Those are questions that you ask to understand what's going on. And then from there, you try to figure out what their problem is. So it's very useful for what I do, but it's, I think, a strength in other ways as well. It just makes the most sense with my job. But,
Well, I think I like that because it's detail oriented, it's problem solving, it's paying attention. And I think that those are all skills. Obviously to your job, but still skills that could be really beneficial in your regular life as well, I'm sure.
Totally. Listener came up as well, which is ironic because I had to have them repeat it when they said it to me. So, so that was one that came up as well. But yeah, it's useful for a lot of different situations. Like how many times does somebody come to you and they need help with something?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is. If you can pay attention to what they're saying and think about it long enough to help them come up with a solution, maybe communicate back to them so that they understand that you were paying attention, that you were listening, you were giving a sense of importance to what they were telling you. So yeah, those are things that matter to me. And so I think it makes sense that the things that matter to you also align with your strengths a little bit. I don't know. Is that something that you've come to observe as well? Like are your strengths correlated with your
they play
values?
very well together.
Yeah.
Of
Strengths
course.
and values.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Totally.
What would each of you say some of your top strengths are?
Friendliness.
Really?
Ability to communicate.
Sorry.
I'm a great chef. No, I made that one up. That's one of the things I wish I was good at, but no, I don't really actually wish I was good at it.
We can test
I can
that.
microwave stuff pretty easy.
We could test that too.
And one of my favorite jokes is you go to like one of your nice restaurants, like, so how did you prepare this steak?
Yeah.
Was it microwaved? Like, how long do you microwave a steak that's this delicious? Like,
Watch the
Did you
confusion.
microwave it
expression.
frozen or did you thaw it first?
So anyway, yeah, it's
Did you
pure
boil it?
jackassery.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I value
ketchup?
joking around, having a good
Yeah,
time.
humor.
My life is pretty awesome, and I like less stress than more stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at a point where I'm like, I can actually enjoy life. Once you get your act together, I guess, and get yourself out of the gutter. A topic for another day.
Yeah.
Just watch all the other episodes. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's some of the things that I like, the strengths that come off right off the bat, and I also play well in like the color realm. Like I understand like compositions and coloring and contrast and stuff like that. Really strikes me, and I hold that in high regard, and that's why I do what I do.
So you were going to be an artist of some sort, no matter what. Then
Yes.
Did you find fulfillment when you were detailing cars and stuff like that in an art way, or was that just kind of like, did that feel artistic to you?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, in some way when I was like polishing paint.
Yeah.
To make it like really gleam and all that, and like make it really, really pretty.
Yeah.
But I think what I satisfied more in that realm would be my sense of accomplishment, because it was something to take something that was terrible and turn it
make
into
it
something
something
beautiful,
cool.
and you're like, that's very satisfying to
Yeah.
the heart.
Yeah.
Yes, job well done. That's one of the reasons why I probably started
Yeah.
that, and it paid decent.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to do it for free, but
That's
so
cool.
that's it. How about with
Yeah.
you? Like, what your strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, I think one of my big strengths, and that's something I discovered through this program, and also again people telling me, or different leadership qualities, and a big strength of mine would be like adaptability. That's something I've talked about before in here, but just being able to see a situation and adapt in whatever way I need to, and especially working with kids, it's huge. Right, things come up, things change, whatever. It's like, like you planned a game, it's raining outside, you have to move inside. Some parent comes up and talks to you, throws off your, just trying to be like flexible with whatever is going on. I think is helpful for me. So that's, I think, in that way of like, yes, it's something I value. It's one of my strengths. It shapes kind of who I am and how I want to go about like how I live my life.
And both Steve and I have worked with you at different times. You're still working with the youth group, right? So we've seen some of that firsthand, and I would agree. You're pretty adaptable. It's hard to throw you off. Maybe it's possible. I don't know.
Well, I have a bad leg right now, so
Easier than it's been in the past is what I'm hearing.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
As you're saying, it's like one of your core values and strengths. Like one of the things you really stand out that you, I don't know, pride yourself on, or it's like it's a piece of armor that you're holding.
Sure.
Where as you're saying, I'm like, I feel like I'm also very adaptable.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't claim it as one of my like core
Exactly.
things,
Yeah.
which is interesting. So that's why I like talking about strengths and weaknesses and the core values, because I can relate to that. Yes,
Yeah.
I also hold a little bit of that. It's
we
not one of my
have-
tops.
yeah.
If you're pulling me in to be the adaptable leader, the one who's I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
You're the guy for that.
Yeah.
Right. But then as you're adapting and you're passing that along on to me, I'm like, I also have adaptability. So I'm like, I'm in with you. We're good. We got this. Where some people, they do
It's
not
really hard
do
for
well
people to
with that.
change.
Right.
Be like, this was the plan. That can be hard. And you know what? What's cool about this is like those, especially when we do the value sheet and we see all 350 or whatever those are. Like you circle probably 50 of them.
Half the page.
You start circling. You're like,
In my
yeah,
case.
yeah, this,
Right.
this, and then you gotta narrow it down to 20, and then 10, and then 5. And I like that because you're definitely pulling out. These are my top. Like these are some non-negotiables. This is who I am at my core. But there is this whole cloud of all these other ones that you can totally lean into or resonate with. And then there's some you're like, no, you're kind of like anti.
Right.
Just like that's not me at all. And so it's cool to see.
Some fit well, some don't fit as well, but they kind of fit, and then some don't fit at all.
Yes.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is
I
how
agree
it
with
makes
that.
us all unique, right? We could have the same
Yes.
top 5, but our the next 20 are going to be different. And it's probably pretty rare to see someone who has the same top 5. That'd be cool. As the more we run it, I'd be interested to
Oh,
see
sure. Yeah.
what the matches are in that. Because
Yeah.
I don't think I haven't met someone with my top 5, and I'm sure
Sure.
you. And even though we're very similar,
Yeah.
you lean a lot more into that artistic,
Right.
creative.
Yes.
It's different. So it's kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that are better. Well, okay, friendliness, creativity, sense of accomplishment. So success is also one of my favorites. What I say, friendliness, humor. Those are loyalty. Another big
Loyalty's
one for me,
big,
right? Right. So loyalty pops up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that one pops up
Yeah.
a lot. But I really kind of claim friendliness. And there's times where I turn it off. Like I don't want to be friendly. You know,
Yeah.
I know my place in certain situations. You know, being the greeter at church, that's a time for my friendliness to shine.
Yeah.
And there's times where I'm like sitting in the audience, and I'm just like, this is not my time to shine in that. You know, the speaker is speaking, even though I'm like, I would make that funnier. No, that's not true. I don't think of that. I don't think funny is a competition. Well, sometimes it is.
Rarely do I think that when Gary is speaking.
Right? Yeah, he's pretty good at it.
Yeah,
pretty good.
it's true.
Okay, so speaking of weaknesses, talking about Gary. No, I'm just kidding. I put here also like okay, so we're told that we have to be good at everything, and that's not true. Okay,
Yeah.
so give me a weakness of yours, and are there any jobs out there that can overcome that or do that for you? Do you understand the question? How I'm asking it?
Are there any jobs that can overcome that, like compensate for a weakness?
Yes.
Like,
So if
even
I'm
though
weak
I
at
have-
this, I'm
the-
disorganized.
I think
Great.
it's the
Hire a
idea-
manager who's organized. Like
Yes,
that's an
exactly.
example.
Farming out. Kind of
So
thing.
what's one of your weaknesses that you know is there?
Yeah, there are several weaknesses that I have, and it's tough because they're real weaknesses when you feel personal about them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to be like fully vulnerable about that is a
Yeah.
tough thing. One of them is I'm a little sensitive to like criticism. If somebody has a different perspective than mine, I have no problem with that. But if they approach it in a way that puts mine down, I feel very sensitive. I feel threatened about that. I have to quell that initial response of like, no, I'm right. Like, and that is something that because I know that about myself, I can account for that in the vast majority of situations. And if I push back on it, it's genuinely because I think I have a different way of doing something that could be better. Right. What I've learned, and I'm going to filter a lot of these questions through my job just because it's easiest to make sense of them through a familiar context. So when I have a patient who says like, this exercise you selected is not good, it's squatting, this way is bad for you or whatever, or, just it didn't click for me. Early in my PT career, I would kind of push back a little bit more and say like, okay, like, did you try it the way that I said? Like, are you able to modify it? Like, I would never ask them to push through pain, but I would at least, spend a little bit of time trying to dig that out. Now I'm much more open to rolling with resistance. That's a concept that another one of my instructors taught me. He said, like, if somebody doesn't want to do it, don't waste time trying to, like, find the merit of the idea, which is something that is important to me. Like merit is a value that I have.
Yeah.
Like if something could be useful or have value, then I want to explore that, but that's not the right time. That's not the right setting. So then what I would do is I would say like, okay, there's probably 18 other ways we could get this same thing. What's the essence of the thing? And so if I'm asking a person to stand from a chair, for example, to build leg strength, are there other ways we could build leg strength? Could I use a bridge? Could I do a partial squat where they're holding on to something? Fill in the blank. Leg press machine. I could do any number of things depending on what I'm trying to get. If that one doesn't work, I may like offer a useful correction, but if that doesn't work, then I won't waste time with it now. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if that answers the portion of the question that's speaking about the type of job selection, but I do feel like knowing your weakness allows you to accommodate for it within your job. If you can, in my case, if I can quell that knee-jerk response of, defensiveness, which I think we all have to some degree about certain things.
sure.
I know I have it.
And everybody's trigger is set at a different level of sensitivity. Like my brother, you could probably say that to him and he wouldn't care at all. Like it would roll off his back. So anyway, and everybody's got a different level of sensitivity to that stuff. If you know it's a weakness for you, you can accommodate for it even within your current job, I would say. But some settings are better than others, that's for sure. It's hard to think of a setting that I couldn't use that strategy in, but I'm sure there's an example somewhere.
That's great. Chris, you want to add to that at all? Or no?
Yeah, I think it's cool because sometimes we can think of our weaknesses as something that just like push aside or ignore, but to understand them and then to work around them and to know, I know I'm kind of sensitive in this area, or it's hard for me to hear that, or criticism against something to know that can set proper expectations, so then you can kind of move past it.
And I think oftentimes we hear that our weaknesses can be counterparts to our strengths. So I think that, at least in my example, I really see a way to help somebody. I really see something that could be useful. The key is to just not let that get in the way. And so
you're continuing your goal.
Yeah, like I'm sure there are times where, like you had mentioned before, that one of your strengths would be like adaptability. I would imagine that that's a strength 99% of the time, and then 1% of the time that adaptability, you lose maybe some of the structure that would have been needed in a certain moment too. Yep. So it's going to be the case that for every strength you can find a way in which a weakness emerges, right? And so that's why it's important. This may be jumping ahead a bit, but who you surround yourself with, who's a part of your team, and then who's a part of your sphere of influence, right? Your circle of influence. Those things can be other ways, in addition to job selection, that you can start to think like, how can I buffer myself around areas where I might be weak or I might be growing? Because you could think of it as a weakness. You could think of it as something that's immutable, or you could see it as an area where a little bit of training, all of a sudden it's not as much of a weakness. Your new lowest weakness may be something else after you've brought this particular skill up a little bit. I feel like a lot of strengths are personality driven, but they're also skills. You can practice them. You can get better at them. Thoughts on that?
Like using the microwave.
Yeah. Sometimes I miss the button.
Sometimes I miss the button.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And so I think there's times to, I mean, you have to, when you're building a team, you have to surround yourself with people who complement your skills, right? So like, I need someone who I'm not super administrative, right? Like I hate sending out emails. I don't like using check-ins and doing that. Like that's just not the thing I'm great at, right? I can do it. I get by, but I find people who are and have them complement my, where I'm more friendly and upfront and talking and doing, where someone's like, I don't want to be upfront. I want to be in the back, but we can learn from each other and we can push each other to do more and grow in those areas, where it's like, I think understanding, this is good conversation because understanding your weakness could actually become something you end up enjoying or being good at if you understand why you don't like it. I hated reading in front of people. I wouldn't even like raise my hand in class talking. Like I just get so anxious about that. And I think it's like, I don't want to have the wrong answer. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to do, so even through like college, I just hate reading in front of people. And now I'm in this position where I read in front of people regularly and speak in front of people regularly. And I think there's been a perspective switch of, my self-worth or, it's okay if I make a mistake. Building that skill of reading out loud, just doing it more regularly and getting more confidence. And now I'm doing it and I actually kind of enjoy it. Where I get to read and kind of present something to somebody. And now that's becoming, it's not a weakness of mine, Was there one moment like where that changed, or was it more of a gradual shift for you? Definitely more gradual. But I think there was a moment when I went back to school, and I was kind of, and I genuinely had more curiosity and learning and more focus in like what I was doing, and just some confidence. I think being older and things like that just helped. I feel like I kind of had my stuff together more, and I think that just kind of just walking in with more confidence really that's the biggest thing that helped me, and that comes from multitude of different areas. But yeah, I think it's definitely gradual, but there's a moment where I'm like, okay, I went back to school when I was 22. I was like, I know this, I know what I'm doing,
And different strengths might dovetail. So as you build, could you consider confidence a strength? As you build confidence, maybe
it's connected to
being in the spotlight or whatever things you were doing, the speaking, the reading, those things may have improved, but there may be other things that improved as well as your confidence grew.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, my confidence grows. I think I became a better basketball player. I think I became a better husband. I think I became a better friend. I think things like that as they, the confidence, that's probably common and relatable thing that people feel of like, as my confidence grows, I'm probably less anxious. I'm less worried about things and less, so I think it definitely is connected. That'd be an interesting thing to explore, how some of these weaknesses or strengths connect to each other and how we can grow them or exercise them more.
Because you only have limited hours in a day, right? You can only put so much time or effort into any one thing. If you're going to build your skills, you're going to build your confidence. One of the exercises that I think is helpful for figuring that out is one of the question pages where you ask about what kind of person do I need to become in order to achieve this particular task or set of tasks or objective. I feel like that's really helpful. I would almost add another question to it and say, what kind of skills do I need to, well, you do ask that, but what kind of skills, if I master them, would produce the greatest improvement in self-development even. So something to be thinking about, like along with some of these other questions that we look at. But yeah, this is kind of where I feel like there's three main questions with Ignite, at least so far, right? There's more, but broadly speaking, there's three that stood out
They
to me.
fall into that category, yeah.
Who are you? Which is asking about your strengths. It's asking about your values. It's asking about, the different things that make you who you are and successful in the ways that you want to be. The second question being, what do you want out of life, right? The goals, the purpose, what's your definition of success? These types of questions. You give people the framework to start to answer that for themselves, and a little bit of accountability, because how many of us wonder that, but immediately are distracted by something else and don't end up answering that for ourselves, right? And then the third question that I think is asked and also structure is given to help address is, how are you going to get there, right? Once you've identified your end point and you've kind of identified who you are and maybe what strategies, what do you bring to the table in that sense? Like, how are you going to incorporate that? What's your plan for making that happen?
Yeah.
And so these are cool conversations, not just because you learn about who you are, but you kind of get a sense of how it fits into moving in a meaningful direction. Thoughts on that?
So yes, I think the program I feel like it's broken into three sections. And the first one is certainly to self-discovery. We got to know a little bit more about you. Because when I was growing up, I wasn't said, hey, you should, like, what are your strengths? Little Stevie. No one called me that. So don't. That is not my nickname.
I'm hearing
Are
it
you
might
sure?
be your
I've heard
now.
Little Stevie from a lot of different people.
Okay, so that, and then what is it that you want? And then I think that's the last part is like, how are you going to get it? Here's a structure on holding yourself accountable, and then more importantly, what are you leaving behind? Like that's important to me. Some people could care less. I'm like, I don't care what I leave behind. I'm like, I do. Like, what is your legacy? And I know you kept looking at that.
I know, I'm looking at it right now because the first
really,
two are self-discovery, right? Who are you? And then what do you want? Direction. And then how are you going to get it? And that's growth. And then after that comes the impact and success. Right?
Correct. Yes.
Which is cool.
Which I think is really great.
Yeah,
you
great.
had mentioned that we just had a meeting because we're taking this into the church a little bit, and they also have another program called Shape, which is finding your spiritual gifts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one of the questions on the roadblocks is like, what's the person you need to become? And the person that's helping us put it together, she said, I don't like the structure of that question, and that question was very important to you. So we changed the structure of it, but I like the kind of way you wrote it too. Is what were you saying? Like, what are the skills, right? Who do you need to become? That's different. Because her wording was like, well, it feels like you're not enough.
Yeah.
Like, well, in the context of it, it's like, no, it's more like, what do you need to learn and grow and stuff.
It's about interpretation. If it's an identity statement, then it does feel like who I am may not be sufficient, right? But then if it's skill acquisition, if you think about it that way, like that's part of who you are in some sense. So I think that broadly interpreted, it makes sense. But I see why that might be a little bit sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly, because that's one of your weaknesses.
I can identify it pretty well.
Exactly. Okay.
No, I'm not.
Right. So one of the things that I feel like through this program and through life and starting a business and surrounding yourself with the correct people, is very important. So who comes to mind when I was to ask you, do you have a strong sphere of influence? And is there anyone you want to give a quick shout out to?
Yeah, my wife Emily, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I would put her first. I think of sphere of influence not just as the quality of the words, but also like the weight of the words, right? Somebody gives me advice, am I more likely to take it from person A or person B? So some people, their words carry a lot of weight, and when they say something, I listen. And not always because of like a sense of like charisma or anything like that, but because I know who they are. Their character has been proven to me over time, and they play a really important role in my life. So both my parents, I would definitely include in that.
Yeah.
One of my closest friends and mentors, Mark Anderson, guy that has really poured a lot into my life. And so, yeah, when he says something, I listen, even if I wouldn't have, someone else could say it and I might, take it under advisement, right? But with him, I'll sit there and I'll kind of dwell on it for a little bit. So, yeah, that's the quick list.
Oh, that's great. That's
cool.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I have people that immediately come to my mind for sure, and for different reasons, obviously. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, for different reasons for sure. Like I in many regards, I care what you guys think. Especially because of where I'm going. In my life with you. Where I'm headed. I want to make sure I'm like on track. And if I have something analytical or something, because you think things through differently, you're very quick thinking logically.
Yeah. He means I'm a nerd, Chris. He means that,
absolutely. I need a couple more nerds on my.
I need some more nerds.
Right.
But
the skill set that you have, you analyze things so quickly that it's like, okay, here's the presentation, because we've talked about this program a lot, especially moving it forward as a viable business as well.
For sure.
And I honor the things that you say because it affects how I'm building it. Not to satisfy people like you, but you have a really good way of making things better. And I like it.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
So I have this core sphere, which would be like 4 people, probably 3. Let's be honest. If I had to really think about it, okay, it's 4.
Keith's out.
Keith's out.
That's tough for Keith.
And then I have the secondary
like
one, right? That's a few more people in it, and then there's just people, and then people I don't want. They do not.
Yeah.
They're teaching me things and what not to do.
For sure. Something you had brought up in the past that has stuck with me is it might depend a little bit on the context too, right? Like, not necessarily that different voices would be a part of your core sphere, but for certain topics in life, right? Like you would go to one person for accounting, but maybe not relationship advice or that kind of thing, right? Something along those lines, or you'd value their skills as a mechanic, but you wouldn't ask them to remodel your kitchen for you, right?
Yes.
So there's kind of a sense of like, even within certain topics, certain domains of knowledge, you would go to certain people for certain types of insight or information or anything like that.
Okay, so I have great. You did mention like this is something I talked about, right? Because it strikes a key with me right away. So I have my spiritual advisor, I have my marketing advisor, my health advisor, and then the other one, my financial advisor. And then what else should there be? What else do I need like help with and that kind of thing? Well, then I have my friends.
Maybe
that
like
I
a
like to
fashion advisor.
Fashion advisor,
yeah,
probably.
might be
Too, but okay, sure, throw that in there if that was important to me, which it is.
I'm joking because we're wearing the same thing.
Right, exactly. You're gonna look cool. Chris sent me a text. You're gonna look cool at the podcast. I'm like, yeah, okay, so am I. So we're gonna.
All right, I'll match.
All right. Okay. So going back along the lines of that. So I like talking about the program because and that's what I want this podcast to be a little bit about, because the next person that's going to come into the hot seat here processes life completely different because of what? Because of what their strengths are, their weaknesses, and what the things that they value, right? And not let alone hair color, eye color, everything that makes us different. But, as human beings, what is the core, the essence of us? And then how do you define success ultimately, right? And, so that was kind of like the question. I don't know exactly how to ask it other than, what does success mean to you, or how do you define success, or just share a little bit about the insight into your brain on that.
That's a tough one. I've noticed that the more fundamental the question, the harder it is to come up with an answer. Not because it's not clear, but it's not clear how to convey exactly what I mean. So I did think about this particular question. Obviously, I've thought about it before because it's part of what we tackle in the program. But this one in particular, the first thought that comes to my mind is, when I die, I want God to look at me and say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Mm-hmm. If I have that, like, what else? What else do I need? Everything else is a form of success, but it's secondary to that, right? And so if I have to ground my answers in what's important in a longer time frame than just the here and now. That said, I've got goals for here and now. I've got an idea of what success should look like. So from there, I scale it back and I think like, okay, in that big time frame of my life, if I looked back and I hadn't done fill in the blank thing, would I feel a sense of fulfillment? Would I feel successful? That's kind of how I get a sense of what else is important on that scale. So did I have a good marriage? Did I write a book? Because I'd love to write a book. Did I have good relationships with my family? Did I help to build a community? Mm-hmm. Those are kind of like my next order levels of success. And how you gauge that, those are open-ended, right? Because how am I going to tell if I've built a community or something like that? Writing a book is obviously like you can tell if you've accomplished that or not. But if you have words on a page,
How many pages makes a book?
there you go. So that's where we go into depth with the goals. We get specific about it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But some of those things are kind of nebulous. So from there, like I've got other forms of success that factor in as well. So like one would be, is my day to day going well with a particular relationship? Do I feel like I've achieved what I want to in terms of feeling a sense of peace for the day? Because that's something that's really important to me. Have I done something good for physical health? Like, these are other areas where like, if I do them, I will feel successful.
Yeah.
If I don't do them, I'm going to feel like I'm not successful.
Yeah.
But I kind of think of it in terms of tiers in that sense. So yeah. Thoughts on that? Would either of you discuss like how you frame what is success to you and how you came to kind of create a hierarchy out of those? Because not every goal that makes you successful is going to have the same weight, probably, if I would assume a little bit. Before you answer, I just want to make sure it's clear. That came off a little bit clunky. How do you organize the different elements of what makes you a success or makes your life successful? How do you organize those elements for yourself?
Okay, right away for me, it comes down to values.
You're saying how to prioritize. You're saying
right. How do I? So for me, like why is my definition of success what it is?
Yeah.
Experience, and then the things that I value now.
Yeah.
Because one of my big things on there is having some sort of financial stability, because I know what it's like to not have that.
Yeah.
And that is a pain point that I never want to go back to. That's why I have a very strange relationship with money. I'm tighter with my money than looser, because I don't want to run out, and it's a problem. Well, it could be a problem, but also like financial security. I mean, I can't just give everything away. I'm like, okay, I'm going to starve because 8:00 tomorrow morning's coming. And I've shared that story many times. What am I going to eat for breakfast if you have zero money? Right? What do you do? Right? There's obviously options out there, but I like having enough money. I don't have to worry about that. I can go to the grocery store and these are the things that I like. I'm going to put in my basket. I know I can afford it. That's a much bigger deal than, oh my gosh, I got a penny pinch because, I'm in ramen noodles again, even though they're delicious.
They are.
They really are good. It's been a while since I had it. Maybe we should do ramen tonight. Okay.
You use the microwave.
You're right. So
show us your cooking skills.
Exactly. Move over. I don't want to brag or nothing, but.
Is he getting out the microwave for this? Oh my gosh!
But that makes sense to me. Like it's like what makes you you? What makes you you? All your strengths, weaknesses, all the personalities, the things that you value, stuff that your upbringing, experiences, all that kind of stuff. So
you filter success through the different elements of the first big question, right? Meta question of who am I, right? Like it's like I'll decide my definition of success based on personality likes and dislikes and strengths and weaknesses and all that, and values, especially values.
Seems to be the guide.
Yeah.
I wonder, so Faith and I just met with like a financial planner, and the first question he asked us is, what do you value? Which I thought was pretty interesting. I was like, oh, I know what I value. I'm ready for this, but in the context of finances, we're like, oh, well, we really want to buy a house, and we really want to do this, and so like, he's like, what's more important to you, like retirement or a house? And you're kind of like, oh, well, that's good. How do you, I guess,
I got to choose,
and it's like, if you, because
you can have one or the other, not both. Right?
Well, and then part of that is dependent on your income, right? Can you afford both? Can you do this? What? Totally. And where we're at, it's like you have to prioritize these things to say, where's my money going to go to? Where does it go to first? Where's it? And so money's a cool way to kind of use as an example of like, how do I prioritize the things I value in order to be successful? So if I think, okay, my definition of success is that I can retire at 65 and not worry about like I'm going to run out of money or I'm not going to, I have these things. I'll be okay. And that would be a measurable thing to be like, this is successful. So now I'm going to put money away. Right. And then it comes down to how you do that, whatever. Right. Or is my definition of success, I own a house, and so I'm a homeowner and we have this flexibility and this is a nice perk and that, at different times in your life, it's different points, right? So I resonate when
Totally.
you said like answering that question. My definition of success is it's a hard question to answer because it changes and it fluctuates and it depends on what my values are at the time or what I'm trying to prioritize or who I am and what has happened to me. You know, for some people it might just be like security. Like I feel successful if I just have, you know, I'm just like, I'm not trying to, you know, I'm thinking financially, right? It's like I have this much money, I live in this place, and everything's stable. You know, I'm not trying to push it. I'm not trying to be more risky. I'm not trying to, you know, so it's a hard question to answer. And I've asked that to, especially like youth group as my big thing where I kind of run all this stuff through as well. What does it look like to be a successful leader? That could be different for Steve than it would be if you were leading or if some, you know, for Faith or somebody else who's like, that is different. So for me, it's like success varies in all the different aspects. I think if I say, no, I value my relationship with Jesus overall, that's paramount. That definitely becomes my definition of success. I'd say it's similar to, you know, good, well done, good and faithful servant. It seems, you know, but now there's all these other things. My success in my relationship with my wife, my success in my relationship with my family, my success as an employee, as a boss, or as, you know, whatever those kinds of things come up, which is so good, is why it's such a good question, because it's never ending opportunities of defining that and focusing on that. But it definitely is for sure the rudder of it is my values, is the thing that pushes me in towards how I feel about the success that I make, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of a long answer. But.
No, I love it. I love it. You
Definitely.
actually sparked some things for me to ask. JK?
I was just going to say, yeah, I feel like that exposes a point where rubber meets the road a little bit. It kind of forces you to take into account, am I living according to what I think is important or what I say is important? And if I am, great. And if I'm not, why not? And the things that I say are important. Are they really as important to me as I say? Like that's a gut check.
I like that.
Because I may say that I really value
Yes.
charity or hospitality, but if I'm not having people over, if I'm not giving, do I value those
Yeah.
things? Like and maybe I do, but there's other barriers, or like maybe I have limited resources. Like you brought up,
Sure.
The toughest dilemma is between two good choices or two bad choices. If it's a good choice versus a bad choice, very easy. No one's going to choose a bad choice. But if it's two good choices, you kind of wonder, like, is one better? Like, do I have to think this through? If it's two bad choices, that's just
Also,
as hard.
yeah.
But yeah, it forces you to decide between the things that you say that you value. So.
And that's the difference between professed beliefs and controlling beliefs, which is kind of like a worldview thing where people say, oh, I believe this. You know, a lot of people say, I believe in God, but it doesn't change the actions of how they live their life.
Right.
So it doesn't cause them, it doesn't challenge them to do something different. Where now, if I sit down and go through this program and I say, I value these 5 things, this is super important to me, it changes the way I start to see the world and interact with the world and the decisions I make. And it's something, like you said, you need to be reminded of. Like you went through school and maybe you asked some of these questions or whatever, but it's not something that you're like top of mind because we forget, right?
And in different life circumstances, things look different. One of the points of your answer was that different domains and different roles will affect what you think is important. Because what's important to you as a husband is going to be very different than as an employee, right? There's some commonalities, right? Like loyalty is important to both of those, but like timeliness may or may not matter depending on your relationship. But at a lot of workplaces, it matters a whole lot, right? And so. Or it may be important in both, but of different magnitudes of importance in either.
Yeah. But it's those. But even though those things change, it's my values as a person that kind of help me figure out what kind of even job I want to be in, or relationship I want to be in, or situation I want to be in, which kind of then dictate the levels of success in those areas as well.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, so both of you mentioned, so one of my questions on here is like, what's your number one goal? And you both kind of mentioned good and faithful servant, like that's very important to you. You kind of put that up there, right? And that, I'm just going to be so bold as to say it, it's a measurable thing, right? Because we know people who don't do that, right? But so they're on one side of the scale, and you say you want to do this. How is that, like, how do you know you're being successful in that? Right, and are you really being successful? You were talking about this has become a little bit of my mantra. Like,
Yeah.
What level are you? You know,
Yeah.
well, it shouldn't be judged like that. I'm like, yeah, but could you be doing better, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if we all raised our levels up a little bit or became more intentional, you know, it's absolutely important. You know,
Yeah.
when you walk into certain situations, am I being this thing?
Yeah.
You know, and can you be a physical therapist and a youth leader and still be like in a godly situation, doing the thing? Am I being a good and faithful servant in
Yeah.
all this? Because, you know, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
So now it becomes your definition of success. You define what you think that means, and then, of course, you know, compare it to what the Bible might say on something like
Yeah.
that. And are you doing the things? Are you doing enough of those things? Because I want to be a better man, a man
Yeah.
of noble character. Well, what are noble characteristics?
Yeah.
And are you doing those things? And can I do them actually better? You know, and what are the unnoble or nobleless?
Yeah.
You're the doctor, right? What the opposite of noble, scoundrelly things that I
Yeah.
could be doing that you should eliminate. You know,
Right.
Dr.
And
Jordan
I-
Peterson talks about that all the time. How about you stop doing the thing
Yeah.
that's bringing you all the pain? That's a good place to start. As opposed to trying to be a good man
It
or a
is.
good person, you can stop the bad stuff. Go ahead.
It is as simple as asking yourself, how can I do more of the right things and less of the wrong things? It's as simple as that. And that's like a mantra that I go to
Yeah.
with clients is like, okay, we've added in all the right things, but you're still in pain. What else are you doing? Right?
Yeah.
Because if it's a knee problem and you're pivoting and twisting and your meniscus hasn't healed, you got to stop that. You got to take
gotta
some
stop
time
doing it.
off, right?
Stop doing the bad thing.
Right. If you tore your rotator cuff tendon and it's just been repaired, eventually the right thing is going to be using your arm again. But for the short term, that's not the right thing. You need to be in a sling for a little bit,
Yeah.
right? You need to not touch that
Yeah.
for a while. You need to have someone else move that for you. Those are the types of things that you have to filter it through. Am I adding in the right things? Am I doing everything that would be additional, above and beyond intentional to produce a positive outcome? And then am I taking out anything that is holding me back? And so barriers,
Yeah.
roadblocks. And then, that doesn't mean that it's always going to be the wrong thing. In that example, you will heal up. You will be able to move your arm again. It's only the wrong thing for a short period of time. Or maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe it's a longer time frame, like you shouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. There are certain things that you know that if you do that, it sets you back in terms of your own definition of success.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the other things...
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to add on to that because I think what you were getting at, Steve, I think is intention. And it's like, what is my intent in these situations? I think there are a lot of like right things you can do.
That would be a wrong thing. Go on.
Yeah, well, thank you.
It's called the visual aid.
Someone could get wireless mics if you had more money. I'm just there are right things to do, right? And so I think that my when we talk about like well done, good and faithful servant, God's obviously the one that says that to us, right? And decides if that's the right. I'm getting distracted now. So let's just cut to where I go because Mike's here.
Hey.
Mike, we're
are you doing here?
just a recording. You don't have to worry about any of that. Just barge right in, and we're fine. Okay, that's great.
Actually,
Being a sound guy,
if you could like randomly redirect cameras and lights and then press random buttons, that would help a lot.
exactly.
No, don't touch anything.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so finish up your point, and we'll just introduce what just happened because I'm going to keep this in. I mean, why not? Our studio audience is now doubled. It went from 1 to now 2.
Yeah.
Sort of. One's here in spirit. So you were speaking
Yes. So
to how are you going
I thought
to
we were just gonna
know
get murdered.
how are you going to know that the Lord's going to say, "Well done, good and faithful servant"? I think you're starting to touch on that.
Yeah,
a
and I
little bit.
think yes, that's exactly where I was. And I think my status with God is sealed, is there. But now it's where's my intent in my day, and am I maximizing these opportunities? Am I using everything I have to glorify Him? And so that kind of goes along with that. I think is I'm learning about that. How important it is to be intentional. And that kind of goes with the whole meandering thing we talk about. You can just kind of float down the river, right? Or you could start rowing and start going a direction or picking where you want to go and having some intentionality and in that, and you might get a lot further than just kind of going with the river. Because maybe that's okay, right? And maybe there's times to not row. Maybe there's times to row, but like you're saying, there's times to hold your sling, there's times to move your arm, there's times to, but you have to have intention in that and not just kind of go through things like, I guess I'm doing this now, or I guess I'm here, but taking some ownership and saying, no, this is intentional living, I think, is really, really important.
And it takes wisdom because,
Yeah.
like you said,
Yep.
there are different times for different things.
Yep.
And so you need either to develop your own sense of discernment, or you have to have people that speak into your life, or really both. You need a sense of deciding what's right in certain moments because you're the only one who's there and you have to figure it out. But you also need a true north, and that needs to come from the Bible. That needs to come from the people around you who are speaking into your life and telling
Truth.
you, hey,
Yeah.
do this, do less of that. And so you better make sure the people who are telling you those things know you, know what's important, and are going to give you advice that is to your benefit and not to your harm. They may mean well, but if they aren't capable, what good does that do anyone?
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Going back to, so I got several things to say. The sphere of influence, meaning, are these people adding to your life? Like, are they in a spot where you'd like to at least try to get to? Right. So seek advice from people that are going to move you in the correct direction. You know? And then also along the lines of, I like the line. I always butcher it, but Dr. Danny tells me all the time. So most people don't want to fix the thing because they're unwilling to stop taking the poison that's putting them there.
Yeah.
Right, because some of those things might be
Yeah.
it's the fun part of life, the sins and stuff like that. You're like, they're unwilling to give it up. Well, then I can't fix you. If you keep taking, you keep drinking poison and you wonder why your tummy hurts. We know the thing. Well, yeah, but it tastes good. I'm like, okay, well then, until you're willing to get to a point where, you are actually ready to grow and become more intentional on the positive things, you're inevitably doomed.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's one of the crazy things, because it may be the case that you truly just don't value getting better as much as you value the pleasure of whatever it is you're experiencing or whatever, right? Hedonism is like one possible goal that could distract you from what's really important. But it may also be the case that you really do value the thing that you say, but your agency is not very well cultivated. You may not be as capable of making those right choices against external pressures, and that's where you have to look for help. You have to kind of dig deep and get somebody else involved so that you can make the right choice on certain things. Choices that will move you forward towards a productive goal, towards a positive.
Yes. Couple more questions. I have written down here. I know the values module was like it affects a lot of people that go through the program, but it like really affected you in a very positive way because you went radically into it. So how and why and all that. So I just want to let you speak on that topic.
I love that stuff. First off, I think it's awesome. One of the best questions you can ask is like, what's important here? Like, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to get out of this? And so, yeah, like that applies in anything because all resources are finite, which means you don't want to waste them on things that don't matter to you. So you should always be asking yourself, like, what's the purpose of this? Like, what do I care about? What matters to me? Am I involved in something that matters to me? And yeah, all areas of life, not just your job, which is like the most obvious one. Am I doing things that are aligned with what I think is important? You should also ask that, like, who am I with? Like, in my relationship, am I with somebody that, our values are complementary, right? Like we are both working toward a similar end. You should ask that with your friends. You should ask that in any context. I don't think there's one where it doesn't matter. So yeah. So I took that and I ran with it, and I enjoy thinking about the concepts. And so I enjoyed looking at how some things were similar, but some things were different, categorizing a little bit. My top 2, I know that you narrow it down to top 5. I had like 10 that were competing for the other 3 slots. So I narrowed it down to 2 for myself, and I'm still working through some of that, which is good because I think a lot of this is a process of refinement. Like you ask the question, you get it going, you narrow it down this much, and then it takes a little longer to narrow it down the rest of the way. But my top 2 are connection and understanding. And I feel like if I can make an interpersonal connection or a conceptual connection, but generally speaking, obviously community matters. And so that's one of my values. Another core value is understanding. If I can figure out enough because from there other values emerge, right? If I understand something, I can contribute to it. If I understand something, I can make sure that we're moving in the purpose of it, right? The machine is working the way it's supposed to. If I understand something that someone's telling me, then I'm able to communicate in a way that's effective. I'm able to communicate in a way that makes the other person feel understood as well. those are my top two. So yeah, I was a big fan of both. The question that was asked, how open-ended it was daunting. It took a long time to kind of think through those things and narrow down those top two. But I think part of what was helpful for me was filtering it through life experiences. What are things that people have said to you that stood with you in terms of, a compliment? Like, great, you have nice follow through. Oh, well, maybe diligence is important to you, right? Like, you can kind of use whatever other people have said to narrow down on what's important to you. So that's like one aspect of it. Another one is holding up two things and saying, which of these speaks more, A or B, right? And so you see that at the optometrist all the time. They're always like, is lens 1 better? Is lens 2 better? And I always say, I don't know, they're both blurry. But with the values, sometimes they stand out very starkly from one another. Like, if one person values gratitude and another person values bluntness, like, I would align myself more with the gratitude side. I would much rather communicate in a way that shows how I'm appreciative, as opposed to communicate in like the simplest, most straightforward way, because it may sacrifice their understanding that I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right. And so contrast is a good way to determine your values as well.
I love it. Okay, so boy, you really struck another thing with the way you talk and stuff like that. This world is broken, and I think that I'm talking in absolute generalities. They're pitting us against each other, and it comes down to values. What do you value, right? So I always say I vote a certain way. I'm pretty consistent in that way. One of my best friends, several of my other best friends, but I have a couple of best friends. Sorry, Chris. I know. I'm sorry.
Chris is shocked. He may never recover.
So several people in my life vote the opposite, okay? And these are incredibly high-quality people. We just value different things. And I'm like, go do your thing. It's great. And I would like for them to say, go do your thing, because we both need each other, right? I bring certain values to the table that contribute very well to society, and they do as well.
Yeah.
But they're making us in the media fight each other over it. I'm like, why? Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But boy, they're doing a great job of it.
Divisive.
Really good, very, very divisive. And so if it came down to a civil war, and I hate even saying the word, how could I take out my enemies? They're not my enemies, man, but they made us be enemies. It's just so ridiculous. And it comes down to values. What do you value? You value gratitude. Like, what are your top 10? Do you rattle them off? I'm like, I can agree with that, because your analytical brain goes through this algorithm, right? Okay, if this, then that. And I think that's why I love how one of your values is understanding. It's like your algorithm would take you over here and make you make these decisions. But if I had a conversation with you and you're like, wait, that is not how I would think. The algorithm's taking me in a completely different thing. But I understand why. You make a good point. Like, those are good reasons, right? What are the, I don't want to get into it because that might be a good topic for later, but what are the things that they pit us against? The top 10 things. And I don't want to talk about it, right? But why? Why do you think that? And why do you think that? Well, it's because I value life and I don't value life, or I value this and okay, I'm starting to get into it, but right. But you could break all those things down. Like, I don't like when things control me. I like having a little bit more freedom. I'd rather have less laws, right? Mm-hmm. But of the laws that I really want, boy, I'd love to have them enforced.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Because then there's chaos everywhere, right? But I need a little bit of looseness, and I don't like when things are stolen from me. Who does? Well, I think some things that happen throughout the government, they're stealing stuff from us, right? That bothers me to my core. And what are they doing with it? I don't know. I see a lot of yachts, and I don't have one of those, right? This is the kind of stuff that bothers me to my core. Like, I don't like wastefulness, all this kind of thing. So along those lines, understanding your values. But I want to honor the people, and I want to have understanding and know why you do the things that you do, so I can love you for that, right? And just don't fight me, because I'm pretty good.
Exactly. And that's why I've never fought you, Steve.
That's the reason.
And I never will.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
I'm scared.
that. Anyway, thoughts on that? I mean, I think it's like enlightening a little bit.
Another
I'd
way
love to make videos on that. Like, slow down, everybody.
That's another way that contrast is used, but in a divisive way. So you can use contrast to figure out what's important to you, but you can also use it to make someone else feel like what's important to them is not important to you, right? And so if you say, look at all these people over here, they're basically stepping all over this. They don't. You mentioned like freedom and autonomy, but also not having things stolen from you, so boundaries being respected. Someone who wanted to create division with you and someone else would create a scenario in which you could have either your boundaries respected and enforced, or you could have something else. And then they would try to egg the other person on into choosing the other one, and they try to egg you on into choosing the former, the boundaries being respected, or whatever, right? You pick two values like that, and if you contrast them and you egg people in different directions, you can create
Division.
Division, polar viewpoints. So, but yeah, I mean, if you understand that that's what's going on, to kind of, rally behind one of my values of understanding, I'll sell it to you here. That's an example of how it comes in handy. You can see that that's what's happening, and you can take a step back and you can realize that both of those things are important. Whatever the two juxtaposed values may be, you can appreciate that in another scenario, the person sitting across from you would choose your value, right? It's just a lot of times the consequences are amped up to make things very extreme. And so politically, that's obviously a huge example of that. But you can see that in your workplace, right? You can see that in anywhere else where there's kind of a democratic standpoint, right? It's your vote versus somebody else's. That could be any organization. You can see it in a family that isn't functioning well, like a dysfunctional family. You can see that too, where people are saying my way, no my way, right? And so each of them are advocating for something that's really important to them. However, it's creating a problem for the other person, and they're saying that my value is more important to me than yours is to you, and therefore we can't meet in the middle. There's no compromise. You can probably speak to some of that just with your training and your background as well, Chris.
Yeah, you definitely. I think any way we could divide people, we do. A lot of times, and I think something I do love about this program is it reveals people's strengths and weaknesses, but in a way where we can learn to complement each other and work through those things to help each other, and not just kind of use them to put us in different camps and separate us and make us, and I think that I think my hope is that everybody is trying to work out what's the best, or what's better. And I think a lot of times that, that's the hope, but maybe that's not maybe what happens. So I think coming back to like the program, like I said, I think it's good to figure out what we care about, and then figure out how we can understand each other better through those things and how to work better together.
And if you engage in the process of figuring out what's important to you, if you decide what your values are, or at least identify them, right? You identify what your values are, you can use that as a point of unity. You can figure out, what do I have in common with this other person?
Yeah.
Because they're a human, and on some level, what they think is important to you. You may have to dig, but it's there. That's where you would take a step back. If you're feeling like you're being divided over something, you take a step back to the last point where you were in agreement and start there, and you can work out the rest. But yeah, you can't do that if you don't know what's important to you.
Yes, amen.
Or care about the person.
Also that.
Yeah.
Right. Put your differences aside. I care about them too much. Okay, last question. This program is not necessarily for entrepreneurs. So I'm going to ask you, do you have entrepreneur blood? Yes or no? No.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
no.
yeah.
If I if you have to hesitate to think about it, I wasn't thinking about it, but I was thinking about how my dad, I would say, is an entrepreneur. You met my dad. He's very business minded. He's very focused on how can we generate a product or service to meet a need and facilitate the construction of a business around that. Like, he's got all of that. So I've seen it laid out in front of me from multiple people, but definitely at home. And so I know that I don't think in those terms generally. I think in those terms small scale. Like, I am helping Emily, my wife, to run a craft fair, right? Like, not run it, but like run a booth at a craft fair. And so she's got a product. She's got to execute on making enough of it, displaying it, having some type of a elevator sales pitch for when people walk by, optimizing the environment so it's eye-catching, those types of things. Maybe marketing would be like more of like my ability set, but also kind of leading in the background, cheerleading a little bit, motivating, saying, hey, you're doing a great job, keep it up, like, let's do this next. I would say those skills, which are skills that entrepreneurs have, I have some of them. I don't have enough of them to launch a business myself, at least not at this point in time.
Yeah.
Going back to our other question, could I become the kind of person who does have those things? Absolutely. I'm leaving the door open to myself in the future. But for now, I would say the answer is no. And that hasn't affected how I engage with this program at all. These questions are still important to me. They still matter. One of the things that I've tried to use from this program at my own work is to come up with an objective or goal that helps on a professional sense, but also with the community at my work. It hits multiple values, right? Like I want to have a sense of ambition that I want to get better at something and improve situations, but I also have a value of community. One of the things we do at my place of work is we go through research articles and we try and talk them out. We try to get a sense of what is the latest literature show about how to treat fill in the blank condition, right? And I was able to bring a sense of organization to that. And so by building goals and figuring out like what my skills are, I tried to find a niche where I could add more sense of value, for want of a better word, advantage, right, to my employer. I want them to feel like what I'm bringing to the table is helpful. That was an example of how not a business owner, somebody who's thinking from an employee standpoint, was able to hopefully make a contribution and hopefully get the ball rolling by creating a schedule of topics and taking notes and converting those notes into a readable document that is condensed enough to be accessible at a glance. Like, these are the things that I tried to bring in. None of that you have to be a business owner, business developer to appreciate. Whatever your role is, you can find something. And those same questions and that same sense of self-discovery and what do I want and where do I want to be and who am I, all of that's going to help in other ways too. And so I've got other goals that I'm working on as well. But to answer your question, no.
Great, and you can still benefit from it.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
Chris, closing thoughts? Got anything else?
It's been great. It's been great to have you. I'm happy to see how the program's helped you, how you're adapting it in your workplace, in your personal life, and helping you reach like goals and stuff. That's just been really cool, and it's just been a really good conversation. So thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, both of you.
My pleasure. Absolutely. We will definitely have him back. There's
Yes.
definitely going to be a part 4 or whatever. So I might
And
break
I
this one
might
up
be
then.
wearing a blazer.
Maybe. Exactly. All right. Thank you,
My
everyone,
bad.
for joining us.
Looking at you.
And,
My side dropped the ball.
and that's it. Mikey, keep running. Okay. Keep rolling. But anyway, yes. So thank you. Thank you to our studio audience. And we'll see you next time. We always clap out.
Yeah, it's good.